The Hustleshare podcast is sponsored by Aspire. Trusted by 15,000 businesses across Asia, Aspire offers a unified suite of financial services, allowing businesses to make fast international payments to 130-plus countries, global payments at the best FX rates, and open multi-currency accounts in US dollars, euros, Great British Pound, Singaporean dollars, Indonesian rupiah, and more. All accessible on via a single user-friendly platform, Aspire. And also by Uno Digital Bank, a full-spectrum digital bank licensed and regulated by the BSP. Manage your money and maximize its potential growth with a secure and trusted bank that fits right in your pocket. Open a savings or time deposit account, pay bills, shop with the Uno Virtual Debit MasterCard, or apply for a loan in the Uno mobile app today. The Hustleshare podcast is sponsored by Lark, the leading super app for work in Southeast Asia. Frustrated with juggling and paying for multiple tools for work? Hate mixing personal and business messages? Improve your team's productivity by 10 times with Lark, which combines business chat, email, video conferencing, calendar, project management, real-time translation, and much more into one super app. Trusted by companies like Xiaomi, Glints, Kumu, and Mamaluz. Get it for free at larksuite.com today. This podcast is brought to you by Salmon, your trusted source for all your financial needs. Whether you're looking for easy financing with low down payments and fast approval, or seeking high returns with their 8.88% interest on time deposits, Salmon has you covered. Visit salmon.ph today and discover how they can help you achieve your financial goals. Rural Bank of Santa Rosa Laguna Incorporated is regulated by the BSP. For any concerns, email consumeraffairs@bsp.gov.ph. Deposits are insured by PDIC up to 500,000 pesos per depositor.
I think it was the universe planting those seeds because I was always reading books and whatever, just preparing myself. But at that time, I also witnessed Erwin having like a BP of 200 over something from the stress from the other company. Just
that's hypertension. I know the threshold. Holy shit.
Welcome to Hustleshare, the podcast that features the daily grinds of unique hustlers around the world to show not our differences, but that our hustles are very much alike. Now here's your host, Ronster Baetyong.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Share Podcast. We finally got this girl. I've been wanting to get her on the show, but she's too busy. Being a globetrotter, blazing trails over Canada or wherever. I'm just like, where is this girl so far? But I've given her an open invitation a long time ago. Especially, I remember, I think it was on Build. Startup Fest. When I was chilling with you and Erwin, the tallest guy in the room in this country all the time. Well, without further ado, let's welcome to the show and long overdue, Miss Maria Sugcang of Remotify. Whoop, whoop. Maria, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ron.
Again, thanks very much. And again, as we're recording, this is a Sunday. I know you're a mama, but appreciate you for extra, or maybe this is your downtime. You don't have to do shit. You're welcome. If this is your downtime. But Maria, again, you've been doing an amazing job. I've seen you guys kill it everywhere. One accolade that I give you so much credit for, because it's super hard to do, is when you guys posted that you're a great place to work months ago. Because what people don't understand, if you're trying to build a great startup, is you cannot do it without great talent. And the best stamp of approval for you to attract great talent, and I wish I did this. I made so many fucking mistakes when I was starting out. Is when your company is considered a great place to work. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
The other accolades will come and go. But great place to work, that stays.
Thank you.
All right. Now, before I get carried away, I need to ask you the $1 million question. Maria, what's your hustle?
We enable freedom by making remote work and building remote teams much simpler, secure, and sustainable for both international businesses and local talents.
Wow, hash praktisado.
No, but that's true, right? Like, I
Mm.
mean, a lot of firms are out there to just make the buck, but we made sure that we designed the value creation process to be looking out for all the stakeholders, for
That's
the
amazing.
international businesses and employees, and you know,
And they're doing an amazing job at it. Obviously, the name speaks for itself. Remotify and whatnot, right? Again, in a world, yeah, we a year and a half post pandemic, remote was normal during the pandemic,
Mm.
but a vast majority of the companies also went back to their old habits. I mean, some of them maintained it in a hybrid setup, but still going to work is different, right? Like physically going to work. Everybody still goes to work now, but I'm talking about complete remote. Like for us in Podcast Network Asia, we I fell in love with it. Like, why will I have to go and
Yeah.
beat traffic?
4
Especially
hours
me. I
traffic.
live in the south. I fucking have to gas up, pay toll, and
Yeah, you
just
lose
to
your
say
life
hi, hello.
in traffic. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Here I
A
get
lot.
to enjoy everything. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that a 25, kilometer drive is a 2-hour drive, and that we actually measure distance not by kilometers but by time in the Philippines, right? And the pandemic, it's sad, right? A lot of people lost a lot of things, but there's also a silver lining to it, where the whole world realized that actually they can have talents anywhere, and the economies didn't shut down, and big corporations continued on because welcome to the world where we live in a single global economy interfaced by laptops and internet connections, right? So, and with, I think, Ron, where the idea also it's backed by stats, right? Like there are 85 million unfilled jobs in the West.
Wow.
And 3 billion workers joining the workforce from emerging markets in the next 10 years, right?
Mhm.
And with the median population age of the Philippines, 25, where the world is, at
Aging.
30, like Japan, 45, and, the world is aging. Like smaller businesses, small, medium-sized, mid-market businesses now understand that actually they can build great teams for a fraction of the cost in great countries where they can have loyal employees.
You are preaching to the choir. Again, we're in that same business now in Podcast Network Asia. When we created podmachine.com. So it's all these people that would say, especially in the States, there's 2 million podcasters there. They would say, oh my God, it's great. It's so expensive to outsource into a podcast, but I might get my podcast at it. Like, no, it's not. You can have world-class quality because we're here in podmachine.com. And you're preaching to the choir. It's absolutely correct. You can get the same world-class quality, but for a fraction of the cost because of the labor arbitrage. And what people don't understand is that you actually help lives or the companies or the families of the people you hire remotely, pun intended, as you get that done. But before we get carried away, Maria, real quick, I will need you to buckle up. Because before we talk about remote work, I need to understand your origin story. Because we're going to have to ride the Hustleshare time machine. All right. And we are back from the start. So obviously, Maria is a homegrown Pelipana. There you go. But I want to understand, Maria, growing up, what was it like? What were the first exposures you saw about hustling?
So I have a pretty colorful story. I grew up living a pretty comfortable middle class life. Had an all girls private school education at Saint Scholastica. Shout out to all loyal
Saint
Benedictine Colasas out there. So we, growing up, we had 3 nannies for us 3 siblings. At one point, we had 5 vehicles in our garage. It was fun, a fun childhood until it wasn't.
Okay.
So my dad's an engineer and was a businessman. He wasn't too successful with business, but he is a great example of what a great human being is. I mean, he's very charitable and, genuinely provided for those most in need, especially the families of his workers. My mom was a powerhouse. She was a successful career woman, hilarious and very charismatic. She was an athlete as well, a champion bowler. But
Nice.
the last time I saw her healthy was when I was in sixth grade. She
Oh,
was
no.
36 years old at that time. And at the time, hearing multiple times from doctors that she only had 6 months to live, one day
What?
to
I'm
live.
sorry.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was pretty tough. And living in St. Luke's for 6 months at a time. But her being the real baddie that she was, she beat every single one of those prognoses. And we fought an 11-year long battle until we lost her at 47 years young.
Wow.
So
I'm sorry to hear that, but again, that grit, you get so much grit out of your parents. People always say like, man, you're so gritty. Like, dude, mom, I got it from my mama. She fought out. I mean, she was supposed to be down and out, in so much financial trouble, but she kept coming back.
yeah,
And I got that too.
exactly.
Mm.
Yeah, and indeed, and in between that time, Ron, I mean, there were a lot of struggles. I mean, my
Mm.
dad lost everything from the business for trying to sustain my mom's hospitalization. We turned from having 3 nannies and a comfortable life to having almost nothing and having the electricity be cut on us, right? And I remember one day when I was preparing to go to uni, my mom was struggling in her wheelchair, preparing to go to work to fund our education. And she got into a huge argument with my dad. And at that time, I just got into university. My little sister was then still in grade school in Saints Co, and my elder sister was almost graduating from university in UST.
Uh-huh.
So that was actually one of the biggest turning points in my life, Ron. I wanted to make life a little bit easier for my mom and to, increase the chances of my sisters finishing. So that day, I decided to save the next 2 weeks of my college allowance, secretly packed my guitar in my suitcase, and pretended to still attend uni for the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
My parents would, obviously never allow or never agree to me dropping out, and they would have sold their kidneys to have us all continue our education. So I chose the lesser evil, and I left.
Wow.
But to give more context, right? To
Guitar. What are you, Taylor Swift at this point?
No, I was thinking like, what is that one thing I could take that actually can make me money? And so, yeah, because I was studying guitar since I was in third grade. And so that could probably support me. So that then I took that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Now I will ask for a sample in another in person, but not here. Okay.
Not now, but maybe
Not
when
now.
we drink again together. So.
Avril Lavigne will come out. There you go.
Yeah, but but just to really give you a bit of context to how heavy that decision was, Ron, I'll give you and the time machine a little treat because I know you like your history, right? And I'll take you further back in time before I go back to this part of my story. So, you see, I was raised in a family of educators and educated people, right? Back in the days when people still traveled the world by boat.
Wow.
My great grand dude, so his name is Sugcang. He traveled for a month for education and studied with Jose Rizal in Spain. So he was an art contemporary of Rizal and Juan Luna. And when he came back
Massive
home,
respect. Okay.
yeah. So when he came back home to the Philippines, he built Minerva University in Manila and another school in Aklan. And that trickled down to his kids, all being chemists, doctors, accountants, lawyers, blah, 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 down to my grandfather. My grandfather was the head of mechanical engineering at UST and was the dean at Perpetual Laguna. My grandmother is an educator as well. And my grandfather published a lot of papers in physics and was sent by then President Marcos to UCLA to study nuclear engineering to help run our supposed nuclear power plant in the Philippines. So all of my grandfather's kids, including my dad, are all engineers, doctors, educators, etc.
So excellence runs in the blood.
No. But what I mean is you can imagine how many people turned in their graves when I decided to drop out, right? Like
Yikes.
that's my point, right? Like that's my point. But my hindsight,
what are you doing?
right? Like you can imagine that, right? But hindsight being 2020, that was one of the best decisions I could have ever made, right? Like at 17 years old, I had to figure it out all for myself. I was away and unreachable for about a year and decided that I will only reconnect with my family when I find myself a good paying job. And for those months, I survived through the kindness of strangers, right? Through a friend of a friend. I ended up in the mountains of Lemery, Batangas. Right?
Lemery, Batangas.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even know how to get there anymore because there's just this one jeepney stop over like the shed where I know how to get into the forest, right? At that time. But I lived with a family who only ate rice with a little bit of soy sauce and cooking oil on weekdays, and then had a decent meal every time their dad would come home from work in Manila every 2 weeks. They had very, very little, but they shared it all with me. And those were some of the most formative years of months of my life, right? And from that experience, I really learned 3 things. So the first thing is that the most generous people are the poorest people because they understand what it feels to not have anything. The second is whoever said money can't buy you happiness is full of bullcrap, right?
Bullshit.
Is lying, right? Lying. It's not that money can't buy you happiness. It is, what you do with that money that makes you happy. At that time, I had to walk down the mountains for an hour and then ride a jeep for another hour to reach Lipa, Batangas to play at acoustic gigs. So every time there was a gig, we had free dinner and beer. And so that was nice. But then what brought me so much joy was having the money to buy school snacks for the kids that we lived with. Right. And so that's very precious. And the third lesson is that the glass is always, half full.
Yeah.
I mean, you might just be living a life somebody else could only dream of. So be grateful. So I remember I had a conversation once with one of the kids there, and one day she asked me what I usually ate at home with my sisters, and I candidly answered that we rarely ate as a family because my parents were busy, and so our nannies would often cook 3 different meals separately because we would want different things. And she said with gleaming eyes, right, like eyes wide, said, "What a feast!" Right? And but when it was really something I hardly even paid attention to or felt grateful for when I was still at home. So, I mean, those experiences made a massive influence on the rest of my life, from the little things like not leaving a gas station without tipping the gas boy because that tip could already be his lunch money, to the bigger things like designing Remotify's value creation process with all stakeholders in mind, like the clients, employees, the shareholders, society, the country. So the overarching lesson maybe I took away from it all is having the courage to follow what I believe is right and trust that it will all work out. So eventually I managed to get myself through college and earn a degree. This is in Cebu Institute Technology.
Wait, so you went to Cebu pa to do this?
No, online.
What? Amazing.
So that is also why. So I was already looking up a university in Germany that also offered online undergraduate, etc. And it's just because of the busy schedule that it was very difficult to go back. It's an impediment for a lot of people to go back to university, right? And that is also why now during my spare time, Ron, I help this social enterprise called Inspiro, where we help undergraduates in the IT BPM industry complete their degree while working. So Yes. So what we do is, apart from teaching them life design, we make sure that through ETAP, so expanded tertiary education, it was approved in at the time of President Ramos, not Marcos. Ramos. Yeah. And what we did is, if you have 5 years experience plus, we'll have CHED accredit those as college units, and then you'll have to get remedial classes in accounting, management accounting, etc. And then you study for about 8 months to a year, and then we make sure that you then get that degree. Right. So far we've graduated 170 students. Wow. With 88% of them promoted 90 days from graduation. Right. But
your ancestors are now happy because of that. Oh, there you go. Bawi na.
Yes, but honestly, it's not entirely because of them. Ron, to clarify, I pursued my degree not because I didn't think I could I couldn't, I mean, not because I didn't think I could make it successfully without it, or because of the opinion of my ancestors or others, right? But because it is table stakes to fulfilling my life design. So my 5-year Odyssey plan is entitled, right? It's all in the board, a journey of entrepreneurship, angel investing, and philanthropy. So the next steps for me is preparing to earn my master's degree and ICD fellowship to be able to course
You'll
that
get
path.
there. You've been through worse for sure. But okay, but last question before we take our first break. And wow, we're so early in the game, but this is so packed with stuff already. You mentioned you're not going to come back to your folks with your mom and whatnot for a year until you have a high paying job. How did you make it back home, and what was the ticket? Because we already now know what it took for you to get your college, right?
Yeah.
Remote. You're already remote. We were doing remote when remote wasn't even cool yet, right? And you got it done. But what was the next step to get you back home?
So going back to my earlier story and fulfilling my promise, I reconnected with my family right before I landed my first job at a BPO, just when I turned 18.
Wow. Okay. So when you say reconnected, did you go back home, or were we just like, hey, your girl is okay?
So I reconnected. Your girl is okay, and then we also lived there sometimes, and stayed there, sleep there. But because I was already earning, then I could sustain for myself.
Right. Sorry, I'm gonna extend this question because my first job also was a call center agent. And the reason why I know how to speak like this is because it was taught in the call center. I did not spoken like this in before. But I credit doing it so early because I was such a blank space. I already knew I had hustle because I've learned that very early on being an athlete. And I think passion and the gift of gab was also in it, but professionalizing everything else into, a proper English speaker, like you can actually unpack so many things. I always credit my BPO industry. My BPO experience. I don't own an industry, okay? Just experience lang. BPO experience in forging me to learn life skills. What did the BPO industry teach you?
I mean, a lot, right? Like it really opened the door for me to reconnect with my family. I landed my first job, understanding an entirely different culture. I mean, we were already, trained to speak English at home, but it was an entirely different animal to know all of the states and right, like
from
the
Seattle all the way to South Florida,
right? Like and the differences in culture, right?
Yeah.
I was so privileged also because it was 2005. It was early days of the outsourcing in the Philippines, and you had access to influential people and to people that are really, really inspiring, right? Like I was exposed to. I remember going back to. So I started at ICT Group, but then later on we can talk about it more. But I got back to ICT Group in 2007 after leaving in 2005. And I remember being on stage for the first time, like Miss Karen Batumbakal. And I remember telling myself, like, when I grow up, I'd be just like her, right?
Nice.
Like being super inspired and really just, we all, owe it to the giants that came before us, and we stand on their shoulders to continue to reshape and innovate in the industry.
Okay, sounds good. Now let's take our first break, and when we come back, we will now go into the meat of your BPO career, because this is where you were really forged. I mean, we had an overarching experience and whatnot, but I want to understand the skill stack you developed under the BPO industry and the BPO experience. And of course, we will talk about how that turned into Remotify. We'll talk about that more after the break. Hey hustlers, how are companies like Pizza Hut, Tech in Asia, and Love Bonito saving $28,000 a year? Well, Aspire is an all-in-one finance solution designed for modern businesses. Over 15,000 companies across Asia are using Aspire to streamline business financial processes, saving both time and money. Now, Aspire understands the demand of your business, and these are their offers. lightning fast international transfers enabling money movement across 130 plus countries, the best FX rates with no hidden fees ensuring transparency, and multi-currency accounts in US dollars, euros, Great British pounds, Singaporean dollar, Indonesian rupiah, and more, facilitating transactions in multiple currencies. And guess what? Opening an account can be done 100% online, making access to a global business account effortless. Aspire works with thousands of startups across Asia, offering an easy way to open a business account to receive investments from VCs. Aspire is backed by global top-tier VCs including Sequoia and Y Combinator and has been recognized by CB Insights as one of the top 100 most promising fintechs globally. Join over 15,000 businesses across Asia that have already made the switch to Aspire and experience the future of business finance. For more details, visit aspireapp.com. That's ASPIREAPP.com. Again, that's aspireapp.com. And let's make business finance simple, integrated, and borderless together. Hey hustlers, money issues and financial stress are a reality we all face, and ignoring them won't make them disappear. That's why our sponsor Salmon is committed to making managing your finances easy and more accessible. With Salmon financing, you can shop to over 2,000 Salmon partner stores nationwide and bring home your dream purchases today with a low down payment starting at just 10%. Plus, it's super easy to apply. Just one valid ID is needed and you can get approved right then and there. No need to wait for payday. Just take what you need now and pay for it over time. And if you're someone that's looking for ways to grow your money, Salmon's time deposit accounts at the Rural Bank of Santa Rosa, Laguna, which is regulated by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, offers a fantastic 8.88% interest rate for a 12-month term for deposits of more than 500,000 pesos. That's currently the highest rate in the Philippines. Deposits are also insured by the PDIC with up to 500,000 pesos per depositor, so you know your money is safe and secure. It's definitely a great way to make your money work harder for you effortlessly. Since launching in 2022, Salmon has raised over $60 million and is backed by industry giants like the IFC, ADQ, and Northstar Group, ensuring they're a reliable partner in your financial journey. So whether you need financing, credit, or high-return savings option, Salmon has you covered. So visit salmon.ph today to see how they can help you achieve your financial goals with ease. Again, that's salmon.ph. Finance made easy with Salmon. And we're back in the break. We are still with Maria Sugcang, who then just shocked us with an amazing and very, very brave move. Because most of the time, I always say it with kids. When I got into the BPO industry, in the call center industry back then, I credit that move to steer me into the right direction. Had I not done that, I would probably completely be a fucking failure right now. Not saying that I probably wouldn't have ended, but a lot of what led me to this situation are a lot of good moves, micro wins that you would credit whenever there's a fork in the road. It's like, all right, do I work or do I be a bum and be an asshole? Work, okay, boom. Do I do this? And then eventually it got to the okay, cool. It was hard. It wasn't the easy path out, but hindsight being 2020, for the most part, I made the right choices. But I want to now understand from your point of view, because I remember being very early in the BPO industry. A couple of things that it taught me was, number one, I look at my peers. I'm not saying this is like all the time. This is just how what I got. So please don't cancel me. This is just what I got because this is what allowed me to turn into an entrepreneur. I look at my peers and they're like, wow, 40, some guys are 40, sometimes are 50. They're in the call center industry. And it felt like they were stuck. I was like, wow, okay, I'm in my first year of college. I still have a choice. Because if I let myself fall in love with this too much, I'm going to be stuck. And I don't want to be stuck. And that's when I realized two things. I have problems with authority. So I don't like people telling me what to do very early on. So I'm contrarian in nature, like, I don't want to do that. I'm pasaway by default, right? My hustle only comes out when it's my shot that I'm shooting. And number two is that, again, I'm never going to be able to get my mom a house if I stuck it out with it. Maybe, again, naive. There's hindsight being 2020, I now realize that there's so many ways pala to get rich without being an entrepreneur. I drank the Kool-Aid too hard.
You
Like,
know,
I
our
thought,
superpower as entrepreneurs is the naivety that
yeah, I
we
know.
have
But
when
then
we get into
after
it,
talking
right?
to so many people, like, how the fuck they're so rich, richer, and chiller, and I'm
Yeah.
almost fucking killing myself every time
Oh
just because I
no.
want to be in charge. Like, my God. Had I done sales na lang pala and say real estate, I would have done super good too. But oh well, I already drank the Kool-Aid. Too late. But last thing that I also remember is that the call center industry also, as much as it can give opportunity, it can also give you a lot of vices. My God, did I turn into the biggest chain smoker that I can,
Amen.
drinker that I can?
Oh no,
And
not
also,
drinking.
there's a lot of things. I didn't get into the promiscuous fuck everyone part. I was straight. Good thing I didn't get STD or anything. But I was just too busy going to school and but again, it could have fucked me up again too.
Mm.
On your end, what were the things that you were very intentional of trying to get? Because you had the plan, which I like, because you're not coming into a situation like bahala na si Batman.
Mm.
Batman wasn't in charge of you. You were in charge. It wasn't him. What were the things that you were intentional that you were gonna get, and what were the near falls that you remember doing in your very first few BPO and stints before you got to True Phone?
Yeah, sure. So I started at ICT marketing. That's when I met Miss Karen, or was exposed to her. And I joined as a pioneer sales team for Capital One Young
Sales
Adults.
agad.
Right, sales.
Telemarketing.
Right. So the thing that I realized, right? What I took away from it is understanding myself. And I always love understanding myself more.
Yeah.
And I realized I'm not for sales. Right? Like
I realized I was for sales in my
yeah,
first.
no, I wasn't. So like everybody was earning a lot of commission. Everybody was luring through the mics. And while I was there, like really diligently educating the young adults about even the hidden rates, etc. And
It's
money
the Suggang in you. There you go.
money is never like, it is a motivation. I'd be lying if I say it wasn't, but it isn't the primary motivation. And like I remember the time when we would have audits from Capital One. I'd be one of the 5 people that would get all the calls because I was so compliant, right? Like so, and then I realized I'm into quality and
QA
value
material.
creation.
There you
Yeah.
go. Mm.
Yeah. Then after that, I moved to first training for Dell for a month at Ambergris, and then because they needed more people in to support FedEx, I moved there. And that's when I realized, because that's a service organization, I realized that every single day, even before commendation was a thing, even before NPS was a thing, every single day somebody would ask for my manager to thank me through my manager because, I helped them with an international shipment or something. So I realized that, creating value that way was something that gave me a lot of energy. And so I grew quickly to mentoring the new hires there. And then I moved back to ICT, my first company. And that was, as I mentioned, first White Christmas was in 2007 when I had the exposure and saw, very inspiring women on stage, and said to myself, yeah, I'll be just like them when I grow up. And so I started there at GMAC, and moved quickly to being handling escalations to quality assurance for about a year. Like we handled 350 agents for quality standards for GMAC alone. And then after that, I moved as a unit manager for JP Morgan Chase telephone banking. And at that time, it was when the captured site of JP Morgan Chase was being built, and we were offered to transfer to JP Morgan Chase. But that was a fork in the road, and I'm happy that I took the other route because that was when I got the exposure to join an in-house outsourced, like captured independent market research firm based in Palo Alto, Mountain View,
Palo
California.
Alto,
Yeah.
Silicon Valley.
Yeah. So I worked for an independent research firm. It's a Wall Street power. It was a Wall Street powerhouse consulting firm. We provided general expert opinion to some of the investment funds. So we connected hedge fund managers with people in the trenches of technology, so they can do fundamental research on the companies that they were investing in. So I was at that time, I handled all of the administrative stuff for the research team. We were eating topics of like cloud computing and iPad for breakfast way before it launched, January 2010, and before cloud computing was mainstream, right? So we were a small organization with our CEO hailing from IBM and Intel, and still today he's one of the directors at Google. But then, the fascinating fact or the fun trip, not really fun, but at that time in 2011, there was a government widespread crackdown on insider trading on Wall Street.
Right. Yes.
And at that time, I actually realized that I was working. Little did I know that I was working with an FBI spy as one of our colleagues, right? And some of our colleagues, right, like from sales, etc., unfortunately got into federal prison. But it's all above board. Like I said, the CEO was it's still now a director at Google, but there were just some individuals that actually shared non-public proprietary information. And then that's the time when I realized the importance of compliance, then led to, when I joined TruePhone, and TruePhone was innovating at the time when telco is equivalent to tech, right?
Yep.
Like, we were innovating. We built the mobile network, mobile phone recording. So we served 10 of the top 12 banks because after that crackdown, all countries required, bankers to record their mobile phone calls, right? And TruePhone did just that. So I got into TruePhone as the quality assurance supervisor for sales. And then they had a big reorg. And I lost the job, but then they absorbed me back as a quality assurance manager for customer service. I worked there for 12 years. And, if anybody were to cut me open, I'd probably still bleed TruePhone blue. It is a startup that, it was my baby too. I grew it from, we had consumer services to in the end serving the coolest brands. We had Tesla, Netflix, everybody using TruePhone, because what it was is we built a network that spanned the globe. It means that we had no roaming in 160 countries. And, if you are a business person, you can have 8 fixed international numbers on one SIM card. And if you're Australian, client would call you on your Australian number. It would ring on the same SIM as your US or your Dutch number, etc. Right? So in the end, we became one of the biggest in IoT and eSIM space. We were the same team that powered Apple's bootstrapping technology and the same team that supported Apple's global eSIM launch on iPhone, iPad, and watch products. But personally, for me, from growing from quality assurance to site management for Asia Pacific to, in the end, being the global head of service experience for TruePhone, it was a great learning opportunity because it was small enough, or it was big enough to learn the best of corporate, right?
Yep.
Like Ron, for that 12 years, I had 4 different CEOs, 3 different reorgs, where all my teams were untouched, but it means that we had to pick up all the things that were left, right? It meant that I witnessed what great leadership or bad leadership is at the time of a crisis, right? It was big enough to learn all that corporate, but small enough that I could call my own shots.
Nice.
And design my own processes, my organizations, right? I think one of the best things that I took away from it is that I had access to mentors, really great mentors early on, because it was a pretty flat organization. My first mentor was the ex-CEO of SmartTone Macau. And then Yeah. And then also learning from, so for example, the guy that really, one of my directors before, he really took Libara to award winning status. And at the time, right, like he was really grooming me, and I felt what true corporate sponsorship felt like. And, you know, from being a quality manager, he said, no, I want you to run the site. And he believed in me before I believed in myself. And, I remember in 2011 in the UK, so we had a UK site, we had a Manila site, we had an Australian site. And I remember in 2011, I teased him and said, oh, you didn't get that award because you didn't involve Manila. So I teased him. And so he said, like, he assigned me, 2012, and he assigned me, December, 2013, because of my big mouth. He assigned me to write, to write an entry for an award, World's Best Service Team Award, over Christmas, right? Over the Christmas break. And at that time, there was a moment when I plastered on the walls of the Manila office, World's Best Service Team. I didn't know how we would get there, honestly. But then he assigned me that task to write. And in February 2014, I got the note that we got in for the Singaporean competition and the Portuguese competition. So I remember it so clearly because in July I presented in Singapore. And I was presenting against, big companies like ANZ, DHL, and in my head, like, who's Truephone? Like, nobody knows Truephone. All I had was the culture that we've designed, the great customer stories, and my team. And it's a small team of committed people. And in July 2014, we won best service team in Asia. That meant that I could present in November 2014 for the World Championship, right? And so I was in November. I will never forget that, Ron, because it was my first birthday away from my family. But I wouldn't deny, I was sad, but I wouldn't deny that, at 26 years old, riding a Hummer limo, partying with your work friends in Las Vegas. Didn't complain. Yeah. And I had 2 birthdays. One is when I arrived, but cut it short. I was presenting on a world stage, and in 2014 we were named the best service team in the world.
Wow.
And that from plastering those words on the wall to actually achieving it. And what that taught me is that when you have a big dream, when you piecemeal it into actionable steps, you can actually make it. There's nothing that you can't do.
No, yeah, 1,000% agree on that. But a couple things I want to know, Maria. So you don't get to do this if you did not evolve quickly also as a leader. Walk us through that leadership journey before we talk about Remotify.
Sure.
How did you evolve as a leader? Because obviously coming as someone who's like, hey, I want to be like her, Miss Batumbaka, to possibly even be better or at that level already. What were the steps that you remember taking to evolve as a leader, and where did you struggle the most as you broke through every single layer? Because it's not easy. People always think like, just if it comes with a title, you like no. Titles don't mean shit, right? You have to have an evolution of and multiple levels up within yourself as a leader, because there's a lot of things as you expand your responsibilities, a lot of things that you've learned don't apply anymore at the next level. So what was that like?
Right. So I'll start off with the struggle and where I started. I think it started with, just being true to yourself, knowing what you value, for better or for worse. My whole career journey has always been about, shifting perceptions, whether that's, changing how people perceive me as a woman of color in a predominantly white male industry, or shifting the perception and status quo of how people live and work every day through Remotify, right? But what I mean is that if you are in my age, in my race, in those decision-making rooms, it takes a lot of courage to speak your true voice, to be able to champion the what is needed to be done. And I guess that bravery is what served me. I've been fortunate to have had the opportunity to lead global teams around the world. Even though I was based in Manila, I led the team, country managed the team in the Philippines, but I also had a team in Hong Kong, Poland, Portugal, and at one point in the UK. And I had the opportunity to travel to those different countries to visit my teams. And I mean, specific scenarios, right? Like, for example, you learn how to hustle when we had to close shop in Australia, and then I had to set up my team in Hong Kong from hiring. Like, I lived there for 6 months, having to hire new people, train new people. And then again, we had to shut down the UK service operations after Brexit was announced. And then I had to live in Portugal for a month to hire the people, to help train the people, right? So all of those, or the little things, like, because it was a small organization, like being responsible for all the outages, like, imagine all of our network partners in 160 countries, like when they would have SMS, voice, or data outages, I'm one of the people that would manage that communication to employees, and I had to empower my teams to do that 24/7, right? Like, or being, responsible to represent for business continuity plans or security audits. So all of that I couldn't have done without my teams. And it's, I think one of the things that I learned is that great leadership is not your people liking you. Leadership is when you can bring your people to believe and to serve a cause bigger than themselves.
Yes.
Right. Like, and I owe that to the situations that I'd been put in to test that muscle, but also from the mentors and the leaders that I was able to watch how they do it. Like, I had the best experience with, observing 3 of the best CEOs in my head. One is somebody who built a culture that lasted beyond him. Yeah, he's very charismatic, and he really created the value, the culture in the company. The other one is a turnaround CEO where, from always at a loss to EBITDA positive to transforming into an IoT company. And then the last CEO was really, because he grew also a Vodafone Indonesia before, and he's really a big telco guy, but also his humility and his, constant focus and service mindedness and designing for employees and clients, and having, a bias for action. So all of those made me to who I am. All the mentors that I had made me to who I am. And my experience in global assignments, I think it's been invaluable in helping me navigate through the complexities of different cultures and markets. I successfully managed through challenges like, as I mentioned, multiple company restructures, closing of operations. But in the end, I left TruePhone really as a question of ethics. So at the time that I left, I already had Remotify, right? And I worked for 1 year, and I declared it to them. But at the time that I really decided, okay, I'll leave my day job, was one when I could pay myself already one salary. Erwin and I are still sharing salary, but that's, startup life. But what I mean is that at the time when I left, it was a question of ethics, because 3 of our 4 investors at TruePhone were sanctioned during the Russian-Ukraine war. And one of our big bosses were Roman Abramovich, who's the owner of Chelsea Football Club. And at that time, right, like, I stuck because I needed to make sure my teams were stable. And it was a challenge in and of itself to how do you get the seeking system of people to actually still be motivated and do their job when money is frozen, when, all of that, like, it's, leadership is art and science. And so when I left, when they were already settled, I still took 3 months of separation anxiety before I could really, I was still helping them in the background before I could really focus on Remotify. But all of that, like, those are very precious opportunities to observe great leaders in action, and
Yeah.
that made me who I am today.
And going through that, I mean, that's a very good training ground for startup life, because you're gonna go through that a lot, but in shorter life cycles. And it's gonna be you at the helmet at this point, not just trying to be the fixer upper or someone who's gonna retrain. You're gonna be
Yeah.
chief everything officer soon. But you already said it. You're already doing Remotify for a bit, and it overlapped a little bit with TruePhone. I
Mm.
want to understand the point of the itch.
Mm.
When did the itch start to come, and how did that even turn into Remotify? Because obviously, hindsight being 2020, this is one of the mistakes I also did. I was one of them idiots who jumped straight up full time into to startup life without any type of income. The caveat though is I was young. I was in my early 20s, mid 20s, so I can still
Kudos to
eat
you.
whatever shit that I can get. But it was hard. I was broke for a long time. But hindsight being 2020, that time of me being broke for a couple of years before we get funding kind of prepared me again, because I didn't know that it was ever going to come. But when it happened again in P&A, the only difference is now I have employees, not just myself to sustain. I was like, I've been here before. I'll be okay. We'll be fine. Hand to mouth existence again, but the mouths that I have to feed are 30 people plus their families. It's just scarier, but I've been through that. And now I want to understand now from your point of view again. What was that point of the itch? Why you were probably months away from being a lifer. 12 years of your life in a company. Is the way you also spoke about TruePhone sounded like you still work there. By the way.
Like I said, if anybody were to cut me open, I'd always bleed partially TruePhone blue, and now blue, red, and yellow for Remotify as well.
Man. No, but I saw the love you had for the company. What was the itch? What was the entrepreneurial itch, and how did you take the jump? And why even did you take the jump if you were so in love with what you were doing?
Sure. So it started with the pandemic, right? So it wasn't an idea. Remotify wasn't an idea. And then the pandemic came, and then I realized, I could actually do my job and do a lot of other things, right? And so if you look at my LinkedIn, I had so many courses completed because I was I had so much time in my life, right? Like gaining back that 4 hours a day, right? Like that's what I've practically done. And then in 2020, I actually had a medical condition that had me on bed rest for quite some time. And at that time, so by the way, Erwin and I worked at TruePhone together. I was the global head of service experience, and he was the global head of sim provisioning at TruePhone. But he left earlier than I did because he then jumped as a country manager for another firm that did company incorporation and a little bit of EOR on this side. So during the time when I was on bed rest, like I think it was the universe, planting those seeds, because I was always reading books and whatever, just preparing myself. But at that time, I also witnessed Erwin having like a BP of 200 over something from the stress from the other company. Just
that's hypertension. That's hypertension too. Okay?
Yeah.
I have hypertension, so I know the threshold. Holy shit.
Yeah, but that's so much stress because, it was like how it was, the fundamentals, how it was designed by unfortunately, the initial country manager. And it was, at that time, he was almost 9 months, a year in. Can't remember now. He still wasn't given the work visa that he was promised. And so in February 2021, I had a surgery. And I mean, on the day that I was having the surgery, Erwin was still working the payroll. And the next day of my surgery, when he was on leave, he got a question really about, where's this receipt, that honestly could have waited 7 days when he was back, right? And so I think it was the effect of the anesthesia, right? That I said to Erwin, you know what? Just quit your job. We can do this better. And, we have more to risk with you staying there than that
Mm.
we risk losing 3/4 of our household salary. So hindsight 2020, I probably would say to myself now, are you crazy? Because I said we still have, I would have 4 months more rest and I would be paid, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And we can survive. And also going back one step back, right? Like
Yeah.
during the pandemic, I realized just how abnormal my life has been.
Mm.
Like during the pandemic, I ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner with the kids, and I can do my job, and they can do their schooling, right?
Yeah.
But I realized that for the past 17 years at that time that I was working, I only saw the kids over the weekend. And if I'm unlucky, I'm even 6 months in Hong Kong or a month in Portugal. So I
Yeah.
missed so much of life, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the seed that planted the idea like, hey, I mean, what if, we can do this for a longer time? What if we can create a workplace that's not an actual place, but anywhere employees feel valued, connected, and cared for? And that's where the idea of Remotify was born. So we decided in Feb. We secured the incorporation March 29, 2021. We secured the trademark April. It was super everything was so serendipitous, right?
Mm.
And the challenge there was we had an MIA designer. Like he
Happens to
got
everyone,
COVID
by the way.
two times, right? He got COVID 2 times, unfortunately. And we had to delay the go live. So we went live July 2021, and without running ads, within 2 weeks, we closed our first client.
Wow.
So we realized, right, like there's a hunger for the process that we've designed, right? And we made sure that it was not just like a lot of EORs or like, they give the contract and they give the payroll and that's it. But
Mm.
what we've designed is we've designed it so that we can create a much longer lifetime value for both the employees and the clients. And
Mm.
now we have clients that have been with us 3 years with the same employees for the past 3 years.
Nice. Okay.
Right.
Now I want to understand. So great, because it's inevitable. You've been all over the world. You know people. You have the network. You know how to build teams. That's a superpower already. You know how to lead, right? But that's doing it within one company. What were the biggest shocks that you guys had to do? Because I felt like you even had to create an office. I remember vividly when I first saw you. I never got to introduce myself. I remember going to remote on one of these days. I was looking for Joseph. I was like, where the fuck is Joseph? My co-founder who
is a partner also of my
of Jay,
right?
Jay Francisco.
Yeah.
And I remember coming in. You were at the lobby. It's like, who the hell is this tall dude?
My totem pole.
Yeah, like what the fuck? Okay, cool. All right, what up? I never said hi. I was like, Jay, do you know where Joseph is? No. And then he was just busy because he was like touring you guys around in Remote. Yeah. But I remember vividly that day. I'm not sure what, I think it was 2020, 2021, but I'm pretty sure
thanks
that was
to Erwin's height.
Yeah. Whoa. The altitude there, bro.
Just as a side note, everybody asked him, hey, do you play ball? And then he says no. And then everybody starts dribbling and doing the shooting movement after he passes, right? Like,
yeah. Why would you not? In a country of midgets, you can make a killing with that height just playing basketball, even if you weren't good. Okay. Because everybody's half your size. There you go.
You should ask that of him the next time we see each
Why
other.
would I ask him? I'll just do that too. When I'll ask him to do that and I'll shoot the ball. Just kidding. But again, you were very early on in the game. But what I love is that you were very, very hustle-centric, that you wanted to get a client right away. And you did. This is a two-pronged question I want to know, right? You're building a team in the middle of a pandemic, which again was a bubble. Everybody, hindsight being 2020, man, whatever time you had with your family during the pandemic, you should have savored it more. Because now that we're back into the normal grind, it's harder to actually get it done. But how did you then match it? Two things: your clients, as you acquired clients, what type of people and who were the people you had to hire to supplement that thing? And of course, obviously basically talk about the business model that you guys came up with there.
So a lot of the clients that we close typically are people who already have experience with working with Filipinos, right? But they don't have an entity in the Philippines. And they, one of the biggest shocks you asked me earlier, one of the biggest shocks that I got was, just how difficult it is to, incorporate and all of the.
That's why AFM law is the best there.
Exactly. Right. Like, and shout out to Jay. I give him flowers for that. He's really a lifesaver. So matching ICP, like we knew as a business owner, we knew that we would create a lot of value for those customers by just extending their runway and having cheaper teams. And they already know that because they already have teams in the Philippines, but they can't give benefits, right? Because they don't have an entity. And so we onboard them, and then all of a sudden their teams love us. And then they don't have to worry about payroll. They don't have to worry about health insurance for their teams and all these stuff, right?
Yeah.
And making just really the people that are typically attracted to us are venture-backed startups and mid-market companies wanting to extend their runway, but also are concerned about compliance, about the security of the people that who are they employing, and a much longer lifetime value, like a longer employment. Right. Yeah. They're not the ones that are looking for a freelancer, because if they were, they would just go for Fiverr or Upwork. Right. But they want to have a stable, employee base, and that's what we take care of. How we started, before we, built our platform, we went to market with third-party tech stacking, already designing the experiences of the clients and the employees. So they already have that experience as if we already have the tech, the platform, and making sure that the human elements aren't lost, right? So we can always automate those human experiences. Little things like, on their birthday, making sure that, it's automated, that they receive a text, happy birthday from Remotify, please claim your red ribbon cake. So the little things that you...
Very brand specific pa. Not Goldilocks, Red Ribbon.
Red Ribbon needs to pay me now. So
okay.
Just really intentionally designing. The first step for me was to create a service blueprint, and I mapped out every single stakeholder's experience, So when we started hiring, we hired lean. We're still running the business with 5 full-time employees right now.
Nice.
So we keep it lean because we created a lot of automations that augmented the need for people, right?
Yeah.
And making sure that the people that are in are doing jobs that are worthwhile, that are meaningful, that are not repetitive.
That really needs humans to actually get it done.
Yeah. And that creates value and gives them energy, right? So I'm super proud that indeed, even though we've never met a lot of our employees, because now we have employees spanning the Philippines from north to south, Benguet to Sultan Kudarat. 77% of them are women. And even though we've never met them in person, 96% of them say we're a great place to work, right? And what that means is that in this age where remote is the future, culture is still everything, right? If you are...
It's everything.
Yeah. If you are intentional with it, and you design it with all stakeholders in mind, it's everything else will follow suit.
Yeah, and the cheat code is, again, you've done this before so many times in multiple types of climates. Good climate, restructured climate. You've battle tested. So now the only difference is you're doing it for yourself. Now, last question before we take our first break, right? So. First break, last break. I'm sabaw. Okay, there. Don't worry. I don't have anesthesia right now. I'm just sabaw. Okay, I want to understand real quick. So you mentioned they're mostly remote. You've never made it because sourcing for great talent. There's a lot of talent, but let's just call the talent pool as it is. A lot of talent, but there's not a lot of qualified talent, and then there's also not a lot of people who are a culture fit. And if they're all over the place, how the hell did you even source them out? Because there's for me, I'll come clean. They don't have to pay me because they're my sponsor before. Caliber. I always build my best teams using Caliber. Because two things, especially when we expanded in Indo. Under one subscription, I can get candidates from Philippines and Indo. I don't have to use another thing. So boom, I'll just post a job. It's only posting, whatever. And I can easily screen them out. Caliber is my cheat code. But majority of the time, I get my applicants Manila lang or Manila outskirts, Calabarzon, plus. Lucky if I get a Cebuano. I want to hire a Cebuano, but I can't. I have to use my Nemo, I think, before to get that done. But if you're talking about a nationwide coverage, and they're all culture fits, and they're also a great fit in terms of qualification or basta, they're a fit.
I get you.
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm sabaw. Okay, how do you get these guys?
So so two things, right? We have clients that already have the teams. We onboard them, but then they land and expand. 52% of them subscribe to additional employees after we've landed them, right? So what that means is they give us the requirement, but in the back end, what is serving us the most is that we've built a great employer branding, that now we have more employees wanting to work for us than that we have clients to give them to, right? Like at the end of the day, we just source initially if it's needed, but the final interviews, the culture fit, the culture matching are all with our clients, right? They are the best people to say who is best to work for them. And then after we've onboarded them, we really pay massive attention to how we onboard those employees so that they understand that they actually are a part of our culture and a part of the client's culture, meaning that we can talk to say we want to create more meaningful jobs for more Filipinos, but in the end, they're the ones creating those jobs, because if they're responsible with the impact that they create, they're going to be the ones to actually convince those clients that, why would I hire in my country? Then let me just hire in the Philippines because I love my Philippine team. And so making them one with that mission allows for that. We are, even though we're remote, we're actually united as a remote working community and Remotify.
All righty, sounds good. Now let's take our last break. Why do I keep saying first break? Last break. Let's take our last break, and when we come back, we'll now talk about, of course, the recent accolades that they just done, being a globetrotter. Going representing the Philippines and in a collision in Canada and everything else, and again, the amazing stuff that they're going to be doing in Remotify. Let's talk about that more after the break.
Hey hustlers, wish there was an easy way to open a bank account and grow your money without the hassle of lengthy application process and income documents? Well, I got good news, because today's sponsor, Uno Digital Bank, is here to help you achieve your financial goals. You can easily open an account with the Uno app in just 5 minutes and one valid ID. And as one of the 6 digital banks licensed by the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, the company is committed to providing customers with simpler, better, and more accessible banking. Last year, Uno Bank was recognized by the Asia Banking and Finance Awards and bagged the title Open Banking Initiative of the Year due to the success of its partnership with GCash, one of the Philippines' leading mobile wallet platforms. And with the Uno mobile app, you can access an #Uno Ready savings account and enjoy daily interest crediting. With their #Uno Earn or #Uno Boost time deposit accounts, you can enjoy a high interest rate of up to 6.5% per annum. Enjoy monthly payouts with #Uno Earn and flexible tenors with #Uno Boost. Other app features include pay bills, the Uno Virtual Debit MasterCard, life insurance, scan and pay with QRPH, and loans. And the one thing that I really love about Uno Digital Bank is they're open to collaborate with a lot of Filipino startups. I've had a chance to see the partnerships that they've had lined up with the startups that they have, and it's truly exciting to see how a digital bank like Uno can enable startups to unlock the power of fintech through digital banking. So if you're ready to elevate your banking experience, download the Uno mobile app today from the Google Play Store or App Store. Or if you want to collaborate with them, I'll be happy to give you an intro. Just shoot us an email at hello@hustleshare.com. Hey hustlers, how many apps are you using at work these days? 5, 10, 20? Let's face it, There are chat apps for internal communication and emails for external, Cloud Drive for docs and wikis, calendars and video conferencing, spreadsheets and project management software, and probably yet another tool to connect them all. It is a mess. And if you're collaborating with cross-border colleagues, partners, or suppliers, it gets even more complicated. And don't you find it disruptive when your personal and business messages get mixed up? And if this sounds painfully familiar, switch to Lark, the leading super app for work designed to increase your team's productivity by 10x at an unbelievable fraction of the cost. With Lark, manage projects, chat with your team, build a knowledge base with wikis, and automate workflows such as approvals without code effortlessly from one app. No switching or integration needed. Join fast-growing companies in over 125 countries, including Xiaomi, Glint, and the Philippines' very own Kumu and Mama Luz, who trust Lark as their workplace super app. I've started using Lark myself for our pressure washing business service, Pop-Up Pressure, and I'm totally loving it. Want to see how Lark can revolutionize your business? Click the link in the description or download Lark for free at larksuite.com. That's larksuite.com, the productivity super app every business needs.
And we're back from the break. We are still with Maria Sugcang, who then told us why the Remotify was built and how this was done. And again, you kind of talked about it, of what made you take the jump full time.
Mm.
But I also know that's the scariest fucking thing you could have done. Because you bleed through Pon Blue for the longest time.
Mm.
And Papa Erwin also was bleeding. No, not through phone. Whatever the color of that company was that you worked with before. What changed when you're now full time? And what did you have sipanks? Like, hala,
Yeah.
let's fucking go back na lang. This is scary. We don't have runway. What was that like?
I didn't have setbacks in a way, separation anxiety in a way that I wanted to go back to the work that I did at TruePhone. Like, I love the company, and the separation anxiety was more for like helping my team because it was a difficult time, and then they still kept on reaching out to me, and I still had to weed through those difficulties when I left.
Mother hen problems,
Right,
technically.
right. So that's the separation anxiety. But at the end of the day, there's still, like I told you, I'm all about representation. And even though I had the opportunity to lead teams, global teams, it has always been a barrier for me to take the next step, which is, even getting closer to the COO role at TruePhone, because I was so far away, right? And that's fine. But what I mean is that there was also joy in creating your own table, right? And building your own table and being able to call your own shots. I've always been entrepreneurial at TruePhone as well. And the fact that every single process, like we could really go to the dev team and give our requirements and go through that hustle and every single process that touched a customer had gone through my team, my process engineering team, and that all built the skill stack to what Remotify was. And so going into Remotify, because it was designed before we started, it wasn't as scary because we already knew how we would operate, even though we couldn't afford a lot of people. Like, we didn't really augment with, okay, let's hire these people to do these jobs. Like, between Erwin and I mean, the funny thing is that we're so opposite that we are complementary. When I ran,
he's big, you're small.
Yeah, big, also the height with the background. Like, I mean, maybe you should run this with Noreen and yourself too. But one of the things that, apart from our height difference, one of the things that I always do, even at TruePhone, right? I always gift my direct reports this book called Strength Finder 2.0, right? And it's the best book that I've ever gotten myself. Like, I mean, what it is it will show you why you act the way you do. What are your top strengths? And there are some strengths that I previously saw as a weakness. For example, I couldn't make a quick decision because I need to think through the possibilities. And that was
Tita Maria Sigurista. That was you.
No, because one of my top strengths is strategic. So if you give me a goal, I could go from route A, route B to route A, B, route A, and I will get there. But I would
You need
calculate the
time.
best route to get
Mm.
there, right? And so understanding you and your co-founder's strengths, like the top strengths of my top strengths are the bottom of Erwin, and his bottom are, and his top are my bottom. And what that means is when we knew that we worked well together,
Nice.
but when we started Remotify and he did his thing and I did my thing, right? Like, and then we met together, like there was so much done. Like he wouldn't think of like service design, compliances,
Yeah.
making sure that the branding, marketing, I did all that, right? Like,
Mhm.
and he was into, okay, taking care of the billing, selling to the clients and, like working with the accountant, all of these
Mhm.
stuff, right? Like, having, or hiring deliberately for teams that actually matches what you don't have, because
Mhm.
there's never a well-rounded individual. There are only well-rounded teams. And so
Yeah.
when you start understanding the gaps in your strength and then hire for that and have a deliberate intention of how your operations would look like before you hire, so it's not like a wasteful hire. But to be honest, it's really scary because we have responsibilities. We have tuition to pay, we have the electricity to pay, we have mouths to feed, right? Like
Yeah.
it's very scary. But apart from the nudge of that, I only left when I could already pay us one salary. And the fact that we know that, we believe in this so much. It took a sale of a house to bootstrap this business, Ron, and we're still bootstrapped, right? And, we believe in it so much that made up for all the fear that had gone into, thinking of.
And you cannot do this if you're not running the business profitably, which is great.
Yeah.
What are the challenges you guys expect? Because here's also where I kind of felt that same knock against service-driven businesses.
Mm.
Okay, this is the blessing and the curse. The blessing is it's easy to get to profit if you just really manage your costs low.
Yeah.
Right? You can easily get it done if you know where to get your customers, how to get it. You'll be just fine. Right? The problem with this is that tech startup investors do not get excited with it unless you have this tech stuff that they're looking at. Right? Not saying that it can't be invested on. It will be, but it's a different set of investors. Did you guys have any challenge on that? Because again, I credit you guys so much more because of the nature of your business, you're forced to become profitable. When a lot of the startups that start out, especially if they got funding up front, they don't know how to make money or to be profitable. And some of them die trying to do that. We almost did. Good thing we were able to find another path forward. But that game is totally different. What are the challenges that you guys typically overcome in the game if you're classifying yourself as a tech or a hybrid tech startup? Or are you guys even classifying yourself as such or no?
So we're a tech-enabled organization, tech-enabled HR platform, right? We've already built phase one of our platform.
Yeah.
But I think where the challenge is, the challenge and the blessing, right?
Yeah.
Because when you are constrained with resources, you become more creative, you think more creatively, you become more intentional. So that was really something that I wouldn't have changed. Also because we wanted our skin in the game. Like we didn't want to raise funds, like not even validating our idea, right? But the other piece is that because we've created already the system and we know already what are the things that actually serve our clients well, that isn't being serviced by our competition. And then getting innovation in the BPO and the EOR and combining it in between, getting the best of both the IT BPM setup and the EOR setup and designing for that. And then translating it into the business model, right? So we had to innovate about 3 or 4 business models until we came up with, okay, this is value adding for the client, and it actually increased our margins. And so all those innovation, right? Designing from the service and then designing the business model. But I think it's always a challenge of balancing how fast you would want to act versus, we can't grow at all costs because we're going to be dead, right? if we did that. And so what we've done and what we focused on is we created our organic base. Like, we're not running ads at the moment, but we get organic inbound clients and we do outbound sales as well. We grew it to 1.2 million GMV in 2023. US dollars, yeah. And it's little things like it's the little decisions that you make that are deliberate, like may it be from the business model to your hiring decision to what you invest in, right? What events you go to. That all leads to you having a healthier business. Because we grew, for example, Remotify's LinkedIn now is about 12,000 followers. Our newsletter is about 10,000 followers, and we've not run any ads on this, right? Like just really creating something of value to people, and then it resonates to them.
Sounds good. Now, what's the immediate future like? So I have a feeling this is not going to be the last time we're going to have you here, because there's going to be some bumps in the road for sure. But knowing you, what you've already been through, you might just go to the mountains again and just bring your guitar and come back to Erwin. Sorry, let me come back to you when I hit this. But I'm you're a fighter, and you've always proven yourself to be a winner. But what's the North Star like? What are you guys trying to achieve? Because if it's not growth at all costs, and you've known how to run a profitable company, what is the horizon look for you, and how does the North Star look like?
So our immediate plan, our goal. So one thing, when I entered this full time, I knew that one, I've never been a CEO. Two, I've never been a startup founder. So I paved my learning tracks, right? I've always been a self-directed learner, even before, right? Like I was just going back to that.
Even your Taylor Swift era. Okay,
17 years going back to that era, like I was taking up MBA units before I had my undergraduate degree. Like I was always like wanting to learn. And so when I entered this, I knew that I had gaps, and I identified those gaps. And the one thing I did was I enrolled myself to Founder Institute to learn how to be a fundable startup.
Shout out to Alan and the guys.
Yes.
My startup
Alan,
dad,
Archie, and Gerard. Yeah.
It's not complete. It's not complete. There used to be a fourth one there. It's Joji. I heard.
My
startup dad.
RIP.
Technically there.
Yeah. But and then when I graduated from Funding Lab, Founder Institute, I immediately enrolled myself to Funding Lab because I didn't want to actively raise. Like all of the investors I spoke with before were investors that invited me to talk, right? But I didn't actively raise until I finished Funding Lab because I wanted to understand what it means for my stakeholders before raising. And so I graduated that in June this year, Funding Lab. And the next horizon for us is to really raise the capital. But what that means is that we will grow the business to 2,000 employees on record by 2026.
Wow.
End of 2026, depending on when we close the round. But that means that we would grow it to 19 million GMV, 4.5 million gross profit by then. Ready for Series A, because within the next 7 years, what we really want to do is to capture 5% market share of the Philippine outsourcing space without going outside of the Philippines. That's valued at $1.6 billion US dollars, and transform remote work, make remote work more sustainable, more meaningful for Filipinos. Because one of the reasons why we founded Remotify, Ron, is that we observed that a lot of Filipinos who are working from home are typically gig workers without employers on record. And what that means is they don't have access to social security. They don't have access to health insurance. They don't even pay their taxes. It means they can't buy a home. They can't get a car. They can't get a loan. Cut
Yep.
to the other side of the problem, where a lot of mid-market and startup companies, when they outsource, they grapple with a lot of outsourcing issues when doing it alone, right? Like one of our clients from the US, his name is Byron. He worked with a handful of freelancers from the Philippines, and he had to deal with, attrition, rehiring, processing all those payroll without HR support, right?
Good
And
luck.
then fast forward to when he onboarded with us, we grew his team from 3 to 30 employees within a span of a year, right? Like, so it's really making sure that we are genuinely enabling freedom, because you and I understand what it means to have more time
Yep.
and to spend that time with the people we love and the people that matter and the things that matter for us, right? And our premise at Remotify is that because remote work is the future, it must have the same levels of compliance, community, and controls that will enable freedom of remote work. And that's what we're building in our platform.
That's amazing. Now, before I let you go, still haven't asked you the most impressive thing I think you've done. Okay. Which is to be a mompreneur. Okay. Because, dude, again, I was raised by a single mom, only child. So stakes are high. Imagine the fury of a single mom being unleashed on an idiot only child when I was growing up. Okay, wait lang. No, but yeah, but eventually I made Bawi naman. I was able to make Bawi, and she's very proud. But again, your kids are still kids. Just the career part alone, I'm already like, what? How did you do that? But that's just like half of the equation, probably 1/3 of the equation. The real equation is with the kids. How did you balance that off? And how did you make sure that despite all of this, of course, the hugot's always going to be there because you have kids, easy. But it's easier said than done. I always have a massive admiration for mompreneurs because I was raised by one. So how did you get it done?
Yeah, it's really the clarity of what I want to be, what I want to do, what I want to have, right? At the end of the day, it's providing for them, but at the same time, the person that I want to be, what votes am I casting to the person that I want to be, that then hopefully they can grow to be proud of, right? So that's what drives me. I mean, that's also the reason why Remotify, because now we get to enjoy building an amazing company without sacrificing that time with them, right? And it's building a better normal for me, but also hopefully for a lot more Filipinos, and later on for every employee in emerging markets with the same demographic dividend. But how I balance it, I owe it really, Ron, to the people that have helped me raise the kids, right? So my partner, and at the same time, my nanny. So the nanny that helped me raise the boys, right? She was my nanny since I was in 3rd grade, right?
The
And she
same nanny.
stayed with me throughout, and she treated my kids as her own. And there's a high level of trust, and I owe half of my success to her. And fortunately, she shortly passed away, but the boys were she's really family. And now same thing. So like the guy now, I have this elder guy with me. I grew up with him. He is a worker of my dad. Actually, my dad grew up with this person. He has polio, Kuya Jerry. And he took Kuya Jerry in when we were young. I remember when we were young, I would go to Kuya Jerry's room and get my guitar lessons from him because he's absolutely talented. He taught me how to paint. He taught me how to play guitar early, etc. And he did the bookkeeping for my dad. And he doesn't have a family. And now he lives with me, and I take care of him as my family. And even though he has polio, like he cooks, and I have this safe feeling that when I would go out for meetings, or when I flew to Canada, for example, when we flew to Canada, there are people that we trust at home that would run the show for us, and there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, it takes a village. My mom was also lucky. I didn't have a lifelong nanny. We've always had the nanny, but the constant that stayed home up until she passed was my grandma. So that's why my tattoo here is my grandma's prayer
Oh.
right there. So yeah, I'm a mama's boy. Don't make me cry.
Oh.
But yeah, I'm a mama's boy.
I really hope that the voice would also be that, right? Like shamelessly, like,
I have a feeling the boys will tell you when they're 17, they want to bring their guitar to go to Lemery, Batangas.
None of them play guitar.
Just kidding.
None of them. But Side plays violin. So, but I think indeed
Hey,
that's
that's
a
a
good
string
idea.
instrument. That's what matters. It's all good. Oh man. But again, I am super duper happy we finally got this done, Maria. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And again, rooting for you, proud of what you've done. And I know this is just going to be the beginning of a lot of things. But if people want to work with you, want to invest with you, or even be part of the Remotify network of remote workers or remoters, I don't know what you call your people, where do they go and how do they do that?
If you'd like to remotify your team, please visit us. Go to www.remotify.ph and we'd be happy to help you. We'd love to have you on.
As a footnote here, I remember I just literally came from an accelerator. I'm not going to tell you why. I'm not going to tell you where. But in this accelerator that we're part of, they basically said that, you know what, in Asia, you're kind of forced to become a good manager as a founder right away. Because let's just say you raise 500K US. 500K US, you'll be able to hire 1 or 2 people at most. 500K here, you can probably afford a 30-man, 20-man team.
Correct.
And if you don't know how to freaking use that money, you're gonna blow through that money because you're gonna go through the birthing pains that you're gonna do now. If you're gonna be a Valley company or somewhere else, you want to harness the power of Filipino talent being world class.
Correct.
Then just Remotify. Yun.
Yes, love it.
What a patch!
Yeah, love
I'll send
it.
you the
Thanks,
invoice
Ron.
after. Just kidding. But again, thank you very much, Maria. But before I let you go, follow us on whatever podcast app you're listening to, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any type of podcast app. And if we did say some jargon, it's going to be in the show notes on hustleshare.com. And again, big thank you to our premium supporters, the brands that support us in this podcast. You guys allow us to do what we've been doing 5 years on as you listen to this. But again, if you also want to be part of them and just be like them, you can go check it out at premium.hustleshare.com. Again, Maria, thank you very much. Peace. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.